You can't kill the boogeyman. This is the No Fear podcast. We know what scares you. I'm Matt.
And I'm Lisa. And this is the No Fear Cast, the podcast where we dissect horror and all the things that scare us. This is the 4th episode in season 3, and we are talking about everyone's favorite horror franchise and everyone's favorite holiday, Halloween. Mel can't join us because, well, she went into the closet and there were no wire hangers, and unfortunately, a man in a William Shatner mask got her. Rest in peace, Mel.
Ah, yes, rest in peace, Mel, indeed.
No, Mel can't join us tonight, but I'm really excited to talk about Halloween.
I am too, and I'm a little sad that I'm able to come back and I'm not able to record with Mel, but by the next episode, I think all three of us should be back, so we'll have all those kinks worked out. But Halloween, God, so much to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, and first of all, we've been talking about horror franchises for the past couple of episodes, and we were kind of dancing around this one a little bit because, I mean, well, it's a personal favorite of mine, but I also feel like when people think about mainstream horror, they think about movies like the original Halloween. The idea that there's a masked killer out getting teenagers, and he has some sort of supernatural ability to stay alive despite whatever is thrown his way. And even though most of us who enjoy horror as a genre know that it's a lot more than just that, and it's been doing a lot of really interesting things, I think for general audiences, this is what they think of when they think of a horror movie.
Oh, definitely. And well, Halloween is also pretty much the first slasher movie. I mean, it created that whole idea as a genre, right? I mean, it came out before Friday the 13th, right? I'm not wrong on that. Am I?
You're not.
Okay.
Did it come out? Did it come out before? No, it came out after Black Christmas.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, you're right. So I guess it wasn't the first.
I think, and I'm going to be really embarrassed if I look this up later and I got the dates wrong, but I'm pretty sure Black Christmas came first and then Halloween.
I think you're Black Christmas is 1974. I just looked it up. But
all right.
But I mean, I think when you talk about slasher movies, I mean, Halloween kind of created, like, that's what people think of, like you said, not just horror movies, but specifically slashers. I mean, it just kind of created that model, and because it was so iconic, and yeah, and who would have thought just a lowly William Shatner mask would be all it would take, right?
Which to be clear, it does not look like a William Shatner mask, and I think that's what makes it terrifying.
It really doesn't. I guess. Well, I mean, you think of those president masks, like the Nixon and Reagan masks. Those actually fairly resemble Reagan and Nixon. Like, you look at it and you think, oh, that's Reagan and Nixon. I did not know that Michael Myers wore a William Shatner mask until I was long after I'd first seen the movie. Like, I mean, I don't remember when I found out, but I was like, that doesn't look like Shatner at all. It just looks like a weird ghost face kind of thing.
Yeah, it does kind of have that ghost face-esque look about it. I mean, I guess that's where Ghostface came from, but yeah, well, and it plays up to a lot of the fears and the uncanniness that circulate around this holiday just in general, because of course, on one hand, it's a super fun night, and especially if you're a little kid and getting to dress up and go out in costume and get candy and stay out past your bedtime, but on the other hand, especially in like the 70s and 80s, definitely when I started trick-or-treating, masks were terrifying. Like, even the non-scary ones, kind of like this William Shatner one, did not look like anything in particular. They were just kind of these faceless, weird, plastic one-piece things. And then of course there were the ones that were supposed to look terrifying, but I yeah, I mean it plays up on that really well, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how intentional this was because I haven't read like interviews with the costume designer or whoever created whoever thought of the Shatner mask, but I mean it really does sort of fit into that uncanny valley sort of thing. Like you look at the Shatner mask that Michael Myers wears, and it's like it looks like a person, but not completely like a person. Like it's just uncanny valley enough to be really unsettling when you look at it. So, I mean, it does a really good job of that.
Yeah. And yeah, well and it does kind of play up on in a lot of ways. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Even though Halloween is kind of the ultimate horror movie that, again, that people think of, it is also really a love story to Halloween and horror movies. First you have that uncanny valleyness of the mask, and of course we've been talking about the William Shatner mask, but there are masks kind of throughout, especially the first one, but that become important as the franchise builds and grows. But even in the first one, when you get that little bit of young Michael Myers and his background, um, he's reaching for that clown mask in that one scene. And I mean, that's terrifying. And and of course, casting Jamie Lee Curtis as the heroine in it, because there was definitely the throwback to Psycho and her mom, Janet Leigh. Yeah, when you're talking about this movie too, a lot of the things that it does, that's again sets the precedent. You have the masked boogeyman, I guess, because pretty much, even though there's a little bit of backstory given for Michael Myers, he's pretty much just the boogeyman, and it plays up on those fears of, here's somebody who seems to kill for no reason and is emotionless and remorseless. Um, and it also, though, when you look at his victim pattern, he, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this delicately, but I don't know if I can. I mean, he was really messed up about sex. So, pretty much. And again, this sets kind of the pattern. And in a way, kind of now that I think about it, really follows the pattern that was at least a little bit established in Black Christmas. But the idea of promiscuous teenagers and promiscuous young adults, and your best bet for surviving this type of horror movie is to be sex-free, virginal, conservative, and Jamie Lee Curtis kind of fits all those. I mean, she's the one who's doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's babysitting the little boy, and while her friends are out drinking and smoking and having sex, and she doesn't wear skimpy clothes or anything that's too tight, and she's just this really, really kind of sweet, innocent, conservative, good girl. And that is one of the things that I think now that we've seen a lot of these type of movies, is kind of the formula for, I mean, I'll even say it, for the final girl. But she plays it really well, and I love how strong she comes by the end of it. And I'll just go ahead and say this at the top of the episode too, that Jamie Lee Curtis is one of my heroes, and this movie is probably one of the main reasons for that. Um, yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome, and especially in these Halloween movies, and the first one in particular. And I mean, I think you're right about Michael Myers just being very conflicted about sex and sexual activity. I don't know how else to say that, like you said, delicately, but I do find it interesting though that like this is, again, Halloween is sort of really establishing that pattern. Like you said, Black Christmas was really the first slasher movie, but but Halloween is clearly creating this formula, and it's a formula that, I mean, you see again and again and again up until you get to Scream, which we talked about, where they, get very meta with it, and even satirical, and start listing the rules in the movie itself. But rule number one is, you want to live, don't have sex. Don't be in like, keep it PG-13. Um, and I mean, that really, we have the Halloween to thank for that. And I mean, say what you will about formulas making formulaic movies, but the first Halloween wasn't formulaic because it was the first, and it does it so well. Like it's clear that they're not just punishing the characters for having sex. It's actually tied up directly with whatever is wrong with Michael Myers. Whereas in later slasher type movies, you see two characters get together and you're like, oh, they're going to get murdered. But that has nothing to do with like the actual killer. This one, it's actually tied to the killer, and he obviously, like, they never say what it is about sex he doesn't like, but he definitely he comes after everybody who does have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it, you know, he sees his sister fooling around, and that's what prompts him to go crazy and kill his sister. But I think you know, a lot of people would say, that's not necessarily something that would set somebody off. It would be weird and awkward and possibly therapy inducing, but not. It doesn't flip that switch and make you Michael Myers, the boogeyman killer. Yeah. Well, and I kind of want to go back a little bit to what you were saying about Jamie Lee Curtis's character, having to at least play it PG or PG-13 in order to survive. And one thing that I really find interesting about this movie, because everybody does like to talk about, oh, it's just somebody killing horny teenagers, because that really becomes ubiquitous when we get to like Friday the 13th and those type of movies. But what I really find interesting is that, especially when you go back and watch the original Halloween, it's almost built up to be this Greek tragedy. I mean, it has all these big dramatic elements, like, of course, Michael Myers is the ultimate evil. But when you look at the character of Laurie Strode, there's a lot brought up in the movie about destiny and about fate. And even though, yes, she is the one who's kind of the good girl and the virginal one, sometimes I almost don't think when you watch it, it's not that she survives because she didn't have sex. It's because she was different from her friends, and she was pure because that was her destiny, if that makes sense at all. But she was brought up to be almost as much of a mythic hero as Michael Myers is a mythic villain. She was the chosen one in the movie. And I find that really fascinating to watch. Especially when you kind of view it through that lens of kind of, yeah, I mean, it almost is a Greek drama playing out. We just need to throw in a chorus and we'll be pretty good.
Well, maybe the chorus is the theme song. It's just
Oh.
a chorus with no speaking. Well, I mean, I'm thinking too, because I've never thought of it that way, and I'm sitting here trying to remember all the different parts of Greek tragedy and that sort of thing. And trying to see how she fits within that sort of. I mean, I wonder if too she would kind of fit with that hero's journey, like Joseph Campbell sort of identified as being a common theme. I'm gonna have to sit and rewatch this movie and like really pay attention to these ideas.
But I think she does, though. I mean, if you want to put her on that map of like the hero's journey, I think she definitely fulfills that, because she starts out with kind of, especially with who the world views her as, right? Like, she is just the young teenage girl, doesn't know much about the world. Nobody really takes her seriously just because she's a teenage girl, right? But by the end, she's become who she is supposed to be, which is the fighter, the hero, um, the survivor, the one who holds the knowledge because she's going to pop up later in the franchise, but she's the one who holds the knowledge to help other people survive too. And you kind of see that throughout. I mean, I don't know if we could really plot it where you see an actual, like, refusal of the call or whatever, but she certainly has a mentor
Mm-hmm.
um, who pops up in the doctor and um, I don't know. Does she have what could be considered a supernatural sidekick? I don't know. But she does have a mentor figure. She has um, her trials she has to go through. Of course, she meets up with them several times and learns, I think, through each one of those trials how to survive, how to become who she's supposed to be. I mentioned in the opening, just kind of joking around that we don't have Mel here. But that scene in the closet has always been one of my favorites. Um, because here she is literally backed into a corner. There's no way out. It's a terrifying scene. Um, and she literally uses a wire hanger to get away. And it's kind of amazing when you watch it. But I feel like that's one of the moments that we see her facing one of these trials and overcoming and getting that much closer to who she's supposed to be in the end. So yeah, I think she does fit the kind of mythic hero's journey. Um, but yeah, now I want to rewatch it and really start, putting on my academic glasses and seeing what I can find.
Yeah, that's. I'm just sitting here chewing over that idea of it as, yeah, like, my mind is blown a little. It's a really cool idea. Well, one thing, I guess, I mean, we could sit and, keep talking about this, but I don't want to occupy the whole rest of the episode with that. One thing I was thinking of too about Michael Myers, since you mentioned that he was kind of this ultimate evil, is kind of going back to the mask and everything. What's interesting about it is that, like, you're. I'll confess I didn't have a chance to rewatch the movie before we recorded, so it's been a little while since I've seen it. But they never exactly say what causes him to snap and why
Mm-mm.
he's right. Like, I mean, he just
Right.
snaps and kills his sister. So he's this. He's almost this blank slate where you can kind of project what you want onto it as to what his motivations are. Like, he's almost this sort of void where you don't know why he's killing, what his motivations are. And I think that almost makes it even scarier because, like you said, you can't kill a boogeyman, right? Like, he is this thing that is so scary because, like, you can't really reason with him. He's almost like a zombie in that sense, where, like, he's if he wants to kill you, he's certainly going to do his best to do it, right? Like, um, and so but he has almost this blank slate in terms of what the motivation behind the evil is, and that almost, like, that makes it scarier to me because, like, I know we talked about this. I can't remember what episode it is, but that sort of unknowable, unstoppable, unreasonable evil is way scarier than something that is knowable, I guess, at least to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I think just practically looking at the timeline, like that was probably taken from Black Christmas because that's a very similar, a guy just shows up to the sorority house at Christmas and starts killing. Like there's no rhyme or reason. But I think by the time you get this movie in particular, and you do have, because the mask lends itself to this, right? Because when you were saying he's literally like a blank slate, I'm like, well, that's it. That's what the face looks like. Like it's just this kind of vaguely human shaped face that could really be anything. And that is what makes it so terrifying because I don't know if we can understand why evil is happening, I think it helps us understand the rest of the world. It fits kind of into a nice narrative that we have in our heads. I think that's why, like, for instance, religion comforts a lot of people. Because, well, there's evil in the world because, a woman named Eve ate an apple. Like that makes it, that made it evil. Now we have evil in the world, and it comforts people, I think, to think that. But when you really kind of get down to it, if you see evil happening for evil's sake, like, or just happening, no rhyme or reason, um, then all of the other kind of narratives we tell ourselves start to erode. And that is a really destabilizing place to be, and that's a really terrifying place to be. And I think that's the problem is you can kind of look at Michael Myers and his story that's at least presented in the first Halloween and say, well, okay, he was messed up about sex. We don't know why. He killed his sister after she got flirty with a boy or kissed a boy. I don't remember what she did with the boy. But he snaps. Well, that still doesn't explain why in particular he picks Laurie Strode to become focused on. The kid she takes trick-or-treating is wearing a clown suit, I think, at one point, which was very similar to the clown mask. So maybe there is a connection, and it's kind of vaguely his neighborhood, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think just the fact that he's just out to kill for no reason. It hits that kind of zombie territory of, yeah, if he sees you, he's just gonna kill you.
Well, and you can't reason with him, and the mask makes him like completely expressionless, and so like that he's a remorseless killer, but you can't even see his expression. All you have is this slack mask that looks, like you said, vaguely human. Like, I mean, I remember, oh, this was before I'd ever actually seen the first Halloween, but when I was young, like 10, 11 years old, I kind of, like, all the big boogeymen, like Freddy Krueger, Jason, and Mike Myers, for some reason scared me, but Mike Myers was the most. And I say Mike Myers like the actor, and I should clarify, I mean Michael Myers, not the creator of Wayne's World, but and I couldn't tell you why, when I was that age, why Michael Myers was the scariest of them all to me. As I think about it now, I think that might be part of it, is that, Freddy and Jason, especially after, I mean, Freddy and Jason are supernatural. They're killing, but they are complete, like they're dead and coming back to life to kill. Michael Myers, at least presumably in the first one, is not dead. He's alive, but he is expressionless and remorseless and almost faceless. It's like this faceless evil, and yeah, I don't. It's creepy stuff.
Yeah. Well, and kind of adding to that creepy factor too of the first one especially is this was a really low budget movie when it was made. And I think it maintains that feel of just really kind of a low budget. I think I read at one point, and this is just a little thing that I enjoyed because I love Foley effects. I love reading about them. But one of the things they did in the movie to get the right sound of like knife stabbing flesh was they cut open a watermelon and stabbed a knife into it. Just to kind of get that kind of wet sucking sound. And I love these kind of horror movies just for that reason. It's just there's some kind of homemade aspect to it, but man, it makes it creepy when you watch it on film. Plus, a lot of it's dark, and that may be part of it too. Is that a lot of it was filmed at night, and the film wasn't great. It's not like high definition, and yeah, it's just it's creepy. It's creepy to watch.
Yeah, it totally is. Well, and I mentioned it in passing, talking about the Greek uh, chorus, but I mean, we should talk about the music a little bit too, because that song, the theme music that apparently John Carpenter himself wrote the keyboard part for. I mean, it's so iconic. I mean, you think
Oh
of
yeah.
you think of like the Tubular Bells as the theme from The Exorcist, and then the Halloween theme song. Those are like two of those, like just and of course Jaws. That's the one I was kind of floundering around for a second there trying to remember. But good scores, especially just even as simple as they are. But man, I mean, it's so creepy. And full disclosure, the Halloween theme song was I don't play piano. I do play guitar. I can still read music a little bit. I can't sight read, but I can pick out a little bit of piano based on what I know on guitar. But one of the very first things I ever learned on piano, uh, a friend of mine showed me how to play the Halloween theme song. And to this day, it's one of my favorite things to do. If there's a piano sitting by, I'll just start playing it because it's so easy, but so recognizable. And something about just the notes. I mean, it's so good at just creepiness.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and even the opening, because that's one of those songs that, of course, it is instantly recognizable. And part of the reason it's so recognizable is because one, like you said, it's kind of simple, but that lends to the eeriness of it. Um, but it's played every time Michael Myers is about to appear, and so you get that subliminal message of every time you hear, I mean, you just have to hear like one note on that piano and while you're watching the movie and you're like, uh-oh. I mean, he's about to come. But even in the opening credits when it's playing, um, it has it's just a black screen. And of course it's going through the credits, they're rolling in orange, and the only thing next to it is this really badly carved jack-o'-lantern that looks, I mean, it just looks like they went to the supermarket, got an old pumpkin and took a dull knife and carved a jack-o'-lantern face out of it. And again, it's that kind of simplicity that in this type of movie just compounds the terror. It just uh yeah, it adds to the creepy factor for sure.
Well, I mean, we should always say that. I mean, never underestimate the ability of music to affect a mood or something. But yeah, something so simple and yet so very very effective. I love it. And again, this, like you said, it's such a low budget film that I mean, I get the impression that, of course, John Carpenter was going for something creepy, but I don't think in his mind that he was like, aha, this is it. This will be iconic, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I
maybe.
don't I oh,
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, maybe he did. Maybe he's egotistical, but
Maybe. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like he was a genius, and maybe I don't know. Maybe at that point he knew he was a genius. He knew that, right? He knew what he was doing. Um, yeah, no, I was just gonna say. I mean, I could talk about the first one forever, but there are lots of other movies in this franchise, and I feel like we need to talk about just the development of the franchise too.
I was going to
Um,
say the same thing because yeah.
yeah. Well, so Halloween came out in 1978, and um, it was one of these movies that again was made for really low budget. I don't know the exact figures, but I feel like their initial budget was like 300,000. I mean, really just bare bones. I don't know if they ended up getting more than that, but I know they got part of it. And Jamie Lee Curtis was pretty much a no-name person when she made Halloween. So after it became big, of course they wanted to turn it into a franchise, but Jamie Lee Curtis had already moved on to other movies, and so they had to kind of shift how they were thinking about these movies. So just for an overview for those of you who are not keeping count, if you count the new Halloween movie that's coming out October 19th, 2018, and I'm so excited um, because Jamie Lee Curtis is back in that one. I think she plays the grandmother at this point who's having to like defend her family as Michael Myers returns. But there seems to be a feeling from at least the trailer that she has been preparing for this moment, which kind of fits with the idea again of the hero's journey from the first one, because she knows she's going to have to eventually fight the evil again because she cannot destroy it completely. So I really like that idea. But anyway, if you count that movie coming out, since the first one in 1978, there have been 11 Halloween movies. So that's Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween H2O, 20 years later, which is about the most 90s title I can think of. Halloween H2O. Halloween Resurrection. And then, of course, really interesting because it's part of the franchise, but it's a remake. Rob Zombie stepped in and remade the original Halloween. So it's part of the franchise, but it's not a sequel. It's a remake, and then of course he did Halloween 2 again. So how those happened, which I liked. I mean, I'm always gonna be a fan of the original, but I appreciate what he did there. But anyway, so that's a lot of movies spanning from 1978 to 2018. What's that? 40 years of Halloween movies?
Yeah, I think it is.
Wow. um, I don't want to skip over Halloween 2, but I also kind of I want to talk Halloween 3 very badly.
I figured it's such the outlier. Uh, Now, full confession, it's been a very long time since I've seen Halloween 3, so but I will definitely jump in when possible. But yeah, why don't you take it away on Season of the Witch, because it is a very different Halloween movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, so the makers of the franchise, they knew what they were doing, and they wanted to come out pretty rapidly. So, Halloween came out in 1978 and Halloween 2 came out in 1981. Well, Halloween 3 followed just the next year in 1982. And I have to admit, when we were talking about the William Shatner mask, I just was having to bite my tongue not to skip ahead to Halloween 3 because masks are a huge part of the franchise and they're a huge part of this movie. And okay, this is what makes, for those of you who are not familiar with Halloween 3, and if you're not, then I don't know why you're listening to this podcast because you need to be watching it. Halloween 3 is called Season of the Witch. And what makes this really bizarre, and kind of, as Matt said, an outlier, is that this is a Halloween movie, keep in mind the third one to come out, that does not revolve around Michael Myers. So essentially, they took the idea of Halloween. There is no longer Jamie Lee Curtis. They introduced us to a new Halloween heroine in Halloween 2. And now they don't have Michael Myers. So they've taken away pretty much the structure of the first movie that we liked. And actually going back and reading about it, I really have to applaud them for what they were trying to do, because I read that they were wanting to kind of pull back a little bit from Michael Myers, because otherwise it was going to become extremely probably formulaic for them to just make these movies over and over again with just the faceless boogeyman killing people. So they wanted actually to make pretty much an anthology series where every Halloween movie would be a different story that revolved around the holiday of Halloween. And now the idea of anthologies, especially horror anthologies, are so popular that I think had they tried to do it today, it would have been more successful. Um, but they didn't. They did, they did it in the early 80s, and people were not pleased, which is why Halloween 4 is called The Return of Michael Myers, because they very quickly went back to their original plot and they brought back Michael Myers. But that being said, I love this movie. I really, really love this movie. Part of it is because um, the killer is a mask. I mean, pretty much. It's just this diabolical idea of um there's kind of like witchcraftiness to it. But it's this idea that but also this really early fear of technology that I think could work really well. If they were to redo this movie today, it could work really well. Like with everybody's cell phones and computers and how connected we are with technology. Because what happens in Season of the Witch is there are these children who, of course, are excited about Halloween and they want to buy this mask because they see it advertised over and over again on TV. So it's kind of this viral marketing campaign. And there's this song that goes where it like counts down the days to Halloween, and it's the Silver Shamrock Company. So you not only have this kind of viral marketing, but you've got this like this really evil corporation behind it too, which I really love an evil corporation story too. Um, and I think they're witches, are they not? What are they? They're something. The Silver Shamrock people.
Um, I honestly don't remember.
Well, they're something. I don't know what they are, but they're not fully human. Anyway, they have that this is one of those movies that it's been a while since I watched it too, Matt. But um it's one of these things that literally. So yeah, the idea that they're marketing this to children, keep this in mind, because it's very much a kid's song, a kid's commercial. But the idea is that the kids will want the mask for Halloween, and then they're supposed to put the mask on and watch, I guess, something on television that's also being marketed. And at a certain time, their heads are going to explode.
It almost reminds me of I wonder how much this was inspiration for Tim Burton, because that plot that the Joker does in the first Batman movie, where it's combinations of different like beauty products causes people to die. Like I know it's not exactly the same thing, but it's definitely that the innocuous things is what's going to be the thing that kills you. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, I love this idea too of the masks will make the kid's head explode.
Well, yeah, and it's just it's crazy, and it's I mean, yeah, it's got so much in there. I mean, it's got the fear of like, of course, the big evil um corporation, Silver Shamrock. By the way, I think they're actually supposed to be like Irish people who are over it. So it might even be some kind of leprechaun thing I'm connecting it to. I don't know. But um but then it's also got this kind of fear of, what we're feeding to our children. Um and I feel like that was really getting its beginnings in the early 80s of, oh, maybe we shouldn't be feeding our children these an endless diet of like sugary cereals and cartoons all day. That might not be the best thing for them. And this is kind of playing on that idea because the kids really became obsessed with it. And I also remember too, there was a pretty gross scene um because it's got a lot of these like low budget 80s special effects, horror movie special effects, but I feel like there's a scene where you actually see a head that's exploded. Um, if I'm remembering it right, or maybe my child mind just put that in there. But I seem to remember a few gross things about that film. Um, yeah, I don't know. I love it. I love every time somebody mentions Halloween, the first thing I want to do is watch the original. Then I immediately want to put on Season of the Witch because it's an amazing movie. And I do. I don't know. What do you think, Matt? Do you think if it had come out like now and not immediately after, because it came out the year after Halloween due, that if it had come out a little bit later or today, that it would have had a better chance of catching on as an anthology series?
I think it's likely. I don't know. I'm torn. Like there's part of me that thinks that yeah, we're definitely more open to like horror anthologies, especially with things like American Horror Story and other things like that. I don't know. I think it would just depend on how it was executed as well, because it almost feels like it's so unrelated to the first two Halloweens that I mean, it almost feels like it was a movie that could have been called Season of the Witch, and because they called it Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, that may have set up these false expectations or something, you know? And that may still today have been something people would have said, well, where's Michael Myers? I don't know. I think it definitely would have had a better chance, though. I think you're right on that. I mean, just get like you said, given the success of horror anthologies and whatnot recently.
Yeah, maybe if maybe if this had come out as like number two, people might have been more accepting of it.
Yeah, I think so, because Halloween 2 was, more of the same. I mean, I hate to say it like that because that sounds bad, but it had Michael Myers just like all the other Halloween movies. If this was Halloween 2, I think it would have been fine, and then they could have done a Halloween 3 that was also unrelated or brought back Michael Myers. Either way, but I don't know. It is fun to think about though, because I mean, it is a very interesting movie. It's just so many people are like, but it's not quite a Halloween movie, and it's like, well, you're right, but it's still a good movie.
Oh, it's super fun. I mean, it really is. It's fun, and there's a lot of just bonkers stuff in it too. Like, if I remember right, the town itself is kind of weird and I mean a little bit Stepfordish, and just the idea of everything is really kind of not perfect, but quaint. But then like there's a curfew that everybody has to abide by and things like that. And so you kind of get this idea that not everything is okay. Um, Although I don't remember if it's ever really explained why. Um, and then you've kind of got these people who are investigating what's happening with the Silver Shamrock people because um there's some scenes around the factory um where they make the mask, but that, I don't know, there's just so many weird things going into this and blending up, and it makes it just a bizarre little movie. And it's even stranger that like you said, it's called Halloween, um, because we've come to associate that so much with Michael Myers, and this is the one without Michael Myers. It's it's strange.
Well, and I think that's a fair point too, that we've come to associate it with Michael Myers. Like, I mean, I was not alive in 1978 for sure, and it wasn't until like the 1990s that I actually saw the Halloween movies. And so by that point, yes, I mean, Michael Myers was Halloween. as far as I was concerned, and like most people. So I mean, here in 2018, it almost seems unfair to even like to try to talk about Season of the Witch in an alternate timeline, I guess, because we've all come to associate Michael Myers with Halloween. But I don't know.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't, I'm looking at the list of the films in the franchise, and the Halloween one stands out. The original, of course, stands out to me. Season of the Witch stands out for me, if nothing else, because it's just strange. Um, I remember going to see Halloween H2O, and I remember that it had the girl from Dawson's Creek.
Oh yeah.
But I don't remember much about the movie other than it was kind of just a typical slasher movie. It was so reliant on the formula that it really that's well that I mean I'm telling you right now that's the only thing I remember about it. I remember teenagers being chased through a dark house and trying to survive. But really, when I look at these, it's not until 2007 that Rob Zombie um, remade, I guess, the original, that I really started paying attention to what was happening in the franchise. Like the middle is really muddied in my brain. I'm pretty sure I've seen all of them, but I could not tell you anything about them.
I will say this Halloween H2O did feature the return of Jamie Lee Curtis to the franchise.
Yes.
That was kind of their big billing thing because
Yeah.
she sort of stepped out after that, and Donald Pleasance was in so many of the sequels. He was in 4 and 5. But yeah, so that was kind of their big draw was, hey, it's the 20-year anniversary and let's get all these 90s stars and Jamie Lee Curtis is back. But like you said, it ends up being a very kind of formulaic slasher movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to just acknowledge that to make a Halloween movie, you need a really great mask and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I don't know. Well, but we've kind of talked around it a little bit, but what did you think about Rob Zombie's attempt at remaking he did 1 and 2, right?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Halloween 2, the 2009 version, I can't remember if it was meant to be a remake of the original Halloween 2 or if it was just a sequel to the Halloween that I can't remember. I did not see the second one. And I feel like Rob Zombie as a filmmaker, I haven't seen everything he's done, but House of a Thousand Corpses was one that I have seen, his first movie, and it was very much like he was almost remaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, thematically at least.
Sure.
I mean,
for sure.
Yeah. So for me, him remaking Halloween felt like a natural thing for him to do, and it almost felt like a better thing for him to do rather than redoing classic horror movies with new names. Let's just do the remake with the actual name and permission. But I mean, that was 11 years ago, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen it since it came out. I remember liking it, but I mean, it's been too long for me to say much more than that, except that it did feel like, okay, this is the right natural progression for him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of his movies. I liked House of a Thousand Corpses. I liked The Devil's Rejects. I saw The Lords of Salem, and I'm pretty sure I fell asleep in the middle of it, so I can't say I guess that I loved it.
I have not seen that one.
Visually it was interesting. And see, this is the thing. He is really good at doing the visuals. Because even though I think you're right that House of a Thousand Corpses is definitely the thematic twin to um, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I love the visuals in House of a Thousand Corpses. It's just a fun movie to watch. It's a fun horror movie to watch. Um, Halloween, I remember enjoying it while I watched it, but what I noticed is that it hit it hit the buttons for me of nostalgia, if that makes sense. Um, and I don't know if it was adding anything to it. Like obviously, if I have the choice to ever watch the original Halloween or Rob Zombie's Halloween, I'm always going to go back to the original. So when I saw Rob Zombie's version, yeah, it was great. And I loved what he did. As a horror movie fan, I respected it because I was like, yeah, if I had a chance to remake this movie, I'd probably do it too. Like, because the original is such a, like I said, I stand by it. It. To me, it is a love story to the genre, in a lot of ways. And this was a love story to that. So I liked it. One of the big, or I would say two of the big problems I had with it, because I think when I watched it, most of my enjoyment came from that nostalgia factor of just experience. I felt like I was getting to watch it again for the first time. So I enjoyed that. But number one, it was too glossy. It lost a lot of that gritty, low budget look of the first one. Um, so just on that, I did not like it. And anyone that I'm sure that that actress that they had playing Laurie Strode is fine. I don't remember anything wrong with her performance. However, she is not Jamie Lee Curtis, and I would not want to be the actress stepping in Jamie Lee Curtis's role. Um, I mean, you just like you can almost put anybody in a mask, but not really because I don't know. There's something to be said about the person who has that big foreboding. It's not just the mask with Michael Myers. It's his walk, it's his presence. It's there's a lot of acting that goes into that too, I feel like. But yeah, I didn't want to see anybody else in her role. And so that was completely unremarkable to me when I watched it. And yeah, I have to say I can't tell you if his Halloween 2 was a remake of Halloween 2. I feel like maybe it was, but honestly, I don't think I saw it because it was like, okay, yeah, I liked what he did with Halloween well enough, but I'm just gonna I'd rather go back to the 78 version and the other one. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I don't hate what Rob Zombie did, but I'm kind of glad he stopped in 2009. And I'm really excited for 2018 because Halloween movies needed Jamie Lee Curtis. And I think earlier I might have said that she wasn't in the second one, which she was. But by the third, they couldn't get her back. So, but there were some other good heroines who were introduced in some of the other ones. I can't remember the actress's name now, who was in I think in 4. The young girl. What was her name? Oh well. Anyway, I can't remember, but I did like her. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm excited to see the movie. Hopefully, we can kind of run an update after we all see the 2018 Halloween, and we can say that even as a grandmother, Jamie Lee Curtis is still going to kick some ass, because I think she will. And I'm excited. Anyway.
Well, I agree. So yes, we'll have to definitely mention our thoughts on the remake. Well, not the remake, but the newest Halloween movie once it's out.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess that's probably a good place for us to end with an indefinite promise to review a movie that hasn't been released yet. So,
what do you mean an indefinite promise to review a movie? I'm telling you right now, listeners, Matt, the movie is coming out in a week. I will be there, possibly at like the 10 a.m. showing. because I'm too old to stay up for like a midnight showing, which I'm sure they'll do. But we will definitely at some point be reviewing this film, and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to hear from our listeners. If you see this movie, let us know. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know if maybe you're screaming um, at your listening device right now, your phone or your computer or your car. I don't know. Because I skipped over your favorite sequel in the Halloween franchise. But you can find us out on social media, or you can email us. Go visit our website and you can find our email address, find our contact information. Because you know what? We would love to hear from you and let our listeners be part of the conversation too, because that's half the fun of doing this podcast is getting to connect with a bunch of our other horror fans. So I hope you let us know what you think about the Halloween franchise. And we'll talk to you again really soon.